So here's a problem that I've been effectively ignoring for ages. This thing has been flashing fuel for the last 6 years, and it really annoys everybody but me. But today on Six's Backcountry, we're here to fix it. This is going to be a problem that's going to come up more and more as these things age. Mine has been doing it forever. Now this one's mainly going to be an issue on the 2012 to 2017 M sleds, XFs, Fs, really anything with that 800 Suzuki motor in it around that time, but it might apply to some 600 FIs too. If your fuel gauge is doing this, but you know that you just filled up your sled with fuel, then stick around because I've got the fix for you. There's 2 different ways you can fix this. The issue is actually on the sender itself. So to get at that sender, we're gonna have to pop out the fuel pump. You may not even need to buy anything to fix this. This is definitely worth trying first. We are doing this repair here today on a 2014 M8000, but whether you have an M or an XF or an F800, it's all gonna be the same. Don't worry about the weirdness. This M8's going through some stuff right now. Don't worry about that. It is an M8. The fuel pump on these things actually sits right here. We'll start with the hood. We'll take the gas tank fascia off, and the fuel pump is sitting right there. That is the top of the fuel pump right there. So we'll just get this plastic fascia off, and then we'll have access to it. 2 T30 screws. We're not actually going to take this fascia right off. We're just going to move it out of the way. Arctic Cat has a tool for these that kind of works, but you might just have to do it the old-fashioned way. Oh, that one was kind of really tight. Super easy access to our fuel pump now, which we can go ahead and disconnect all the fittings from. And as long as these screws don't give you an issue, she'll come right out. And this fuel pump is ready to come out now, so make sure you're ready for it. Just be careful of the sender arm. Make sure you get some ventilation going, or you're doing it outside or whatever though. So here's our fuel pump. I have it out here on the bench so we can have a good look at it. The other 2 fuel pickups go back up that way. And I'll show you the trick to getting this pump back in when we're ready for reinstall. Here's our issue. It's actually this sending unit right here. This is our problem. Just gonna pop this float arm off so we can work on this a little bit better. So this being our issue, I'm just going to very carefully pop this arm out. It just clipped in from the back there. So these 2 really tiny little contacts here, they create the complete circuit on that sending unit. And one of these was actually not even touching. You can see really closely how one of those pins is bent down just a little further. So I don't even think this would have been working. First off, we're gonna wanna give these contacts a little bit of a clean. I'm just using steel wool. Then after you're sure you got them cleaned up, we're just gonna take them. And then we just gotta carefully bend these outward just a little bit. Same with this. We gotta make sure that it's really clean. Then once everything's clean and you're certain everything is where it needs to be, go ahead and start putting everything back together now. Just gonna make sure here everything's making nice contact. Feels a little stiffer, which it should. Okay, and that's all we have to do there. And as long as you're sure that everything's clean and those contacts are making good contact, good to go back in with this thing. In your float, you need it to be not full of fuel, like this one is. I'm gonna repair this quick. Tiny, tiny little pinhole there. This needs to float. That's pretty much how this whole thing works, and I'm pretty sure you can't order just this. So I have some sealant back from when we did the Summit Mach Z fuel tank. I'm just going to repair this. Just make sure if this happens to you, whatever you're using, make sure it's rated for gas. But if it doesn't work for you, you will need to replace this sender. Arctic Cat does make a kit number for it, and it's super easy. You just pop off the sending unit, cut the wires wherever. There'll be connectors with resin in it, so you just reconnect the wires here, and you're done. It's really easy replacement. If you want, while you're in here, make sure everybody's good, make sure everybody's returning. Now, this isn't a requirement, but I'm going to recommend you build something like this. This is for putting our fuel pump and our fuel pickups back in. Cat actually has a tool. You probably don't need it anyway, but it will make sure that your fuel pickups go to the exact right place. So just to make sure, this is per Arctic Cat service manual, by the way. So just to make sure that these two fuel pickups actually go to the right home, you'll find yourself some mechanics wire, make yourself a nice little tool, and then you can kind of hold those two together. And then once you put it inside the gas tank, you yank that off. Those two pickups go back to the exact same place. You might not need to do this. I've never done it without one, so I'd always do it this way. Put the camera hopefully far enough back here. Just gonna put those back in there toward the back of the tank. And just make sure that the float doesn't get all tangled up in there or anything like that. And then once you're about that far in, and there you go. Give this a quick cleanup and we'll do our reinstall. The only thing we don't want to do is over tighten these ones. Don't kill these ones, make them tight, but don't kill them. Now it's time to start it up, moment of truth. All right, so that pretty much has it. It always feels good when the repair works. That's nice. So in my case, I actually had two different things going on. I think it was the sender initially, because when I would put like mixed fuel in from like the chainsaw or the Alpine or whatever, it would start working again intermittently. Like as long as the mixed fuel remained in the tank, I think it was enough to clean up those contacts enough and make enough of a connection that my fuel would actually start working again. And then I think the hole in the float came later. I was having a little bit of a hard time finding the part number for that sender. If I find it, I will put it down and I'll make a top comment on the video. If you wanted to verify your repair, you could also check the resistance levels between those two pins on the fuel pump connector. Then you can play with the level indicator, and as long as you're getting different resistance readings on those two wires or between those two contacts, you know that it's working. So there's a couple of things that cause this issue. One of them is pretty much just moisture in the fuel tank. I always recommend that if you are storing your sled over summer, you fill up the tank full of fuel and then you add some fuel stabilizer. The other thing that causes it is just old degraded fuel. Fuel doesn't stay good for that long and it grinds up really quick, especially if you have a unit that's been sitting around for a number of years. As these sleds age, videos like these are going to become more indispensable. Okay, I'm going to end this video there. Hopefully that helped you out. Sledding is happening very soon. As for this thing, it's basically going on to its third life now, and I gotta get back on this thing because there's a bunch more that needs to be done with it. And maybe sledding in the next video soon. Bye, everybody.